Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we got the first look at item recovery in Alpha 4.1, and I gotta say this is the most disappointed I've been in CIG's design yet. I was a big fan of Rich Tara. I think he's a godsend to the project, and I think that the web of gameplay loops that have been mapped out, the way they intersect, the way that the PvE players get their content in their corner with instance dungeons, for example, instance fleet battles and stuff like that to fulfill the PvE players' needs in the high security systems, and then the contrasting opposite of that in the null security systems, and then the kind of middle ground of the middle security systems or low security systems like Stanton, for example. The way that all these professions in crafting interconnect and loop together, and the web of gameplay loops that are dependent on each other, I think is just an amazing way to connect the dots. This, I understand, is to cater to players that have purchased gear on the store, right? But also just losing gear in general. Star Citizen's got a problem with it. It's always has, which is you can buy progression in Star Citizen. That's always been the case. We don't get to have the game that we have currently and are getting soon, soon TM, without people having paid for it. Problem is we're also paying for a solo campaign that people probably unknowingly are paying for at the same time. Squadron 42 isn't funded by its own earnings. It's funded by the promises on a separate game, the MMO, Star Citizen. So development, because of that, tends to be a lot slower because almost, from what I understand, it's a larger portion that are working on the single player game anyways. That's okay, whatever, an argument for another video, but that's the reality we live in. So problem is that they're selling armor and weapons too. These aren't just skins, this is actual physical armor. And because of that, players feel entitled and upset when they lose this stuff, which is reasonable. You buy something for 15, you expect to own it. I just don't understand why the progression of the game, the economy of the game, and inventory, etc., is tied into this. This should be skins. Like, I think you should buy the Gallant Red Alerts and then apply all the Gallants, and then apply the Red Alert skin to the gun. Same for the Geminis, same for the Grey Cat armor, the Morozov, etc. This should be sold as skins. Selling this as actual armor and weapons just makes no sense to me because you're discouraging people from going out and getting this stuff, which all of this is very easily lootable for the most part, right? Like, or purchasable just from a store in game. It's the skin or the aesthetic that makes this special, yet players feel very close to it. So instead of bending this store to match that and mold around the game, they're bending the game to mold around the store, which is just such an issue for me, and really ruining the game in my eyes. Regardless, I don't mind that this exists. Again, need to get the funding somehow. I mind that this is the game's being catered to this now, which is a huge issue. Now, why do people want this? They want it because they go to a bunker and they fall. As soon as they get out of the ship, they fall through the planet and they lose their gear. Maybe, they trip down some stairs or they fall through an invisible elevator and they lose the gear. So Systems already put some measures in place, like if you die in a station, you get to keep the gear unless you're in a contested zone, etc. Right? There is mechanics in place for this to deal with this, but sometimes you have to pay the price of playing the game that it is, the state that it's in. The issue I have with that is there's so many ways to fix this problem of you're selling gear in game or players die due to bugs or they got ganked in PvP, or they lost in PvE and they underestimated NPCs that they were running into. They crashed their ship into an asteroid. There's a wealth of ways you could die, but they lose their stuff. Catering the game to this is really bad, and I think that there was so many options available to instead resolve this the way it should have been resolved, instead of item recovery and how that looks in the tier 0 implementation. It's so bad. If I was to rate this out of 10, it's a 0. Like, how damaging do I think this is going to be to the game this year? Massively so. Massively so. I think this ruins the game in the interim. What little there is of it, what little gameplay they have, I think is completely ruined by this tier 0 implementation of item recovery. I understand the necessity for tier 1 and tier 2 and some sort of working system to recover gear, as long as it's tied into consequences of the economy, meaning you have to buy it back. That makes sense. The tier 1 and tier 2 implementations of this, dead man switches on weapons, armor, ship components in ships, this made sense to me with a spaceship. This doesn't make sense to me with every single item in the game, which is kind of where they're getting at with this. So now I've got concerns of tier 1 and tier 2 as well. But tier 0, yeah, like ruining the game kind of stuff. So I've put together a list of reasons I think this is really going to damage the game in the meantime. And I think truly is a terrible idea. Like, in my opinion, this needs to get skipped entirely, tier 0, and go straight to tier 1 and tier 2, because this compromises the entire game. The reason it compromises the game is, the answer is the economy and money sinks. Now, I've seen Rich Tara, again, who I'm a massive fan of. I've seen him propose that an important aspect of them spinning up the economy team was to create money sinks. Well, this was hitting the delete button on the only significant money sink in Star Citizen, which was FPS gear, which is the only thing to buy AUEC that couldn't be purchased on the store because you would lose it, for that wipe, or at least that version of the patch. So now that you can't lose gear, you can't lose spaceships, and you can't lose components, we're playing an entire risk-free game with training wheels, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. Like, an example is, this morning I woke up to a DM from an org mate that they had earned 500 million UEC, apparently, which is a whole separate issue and a whole separate video, but I'm not going to make it. But he has 500 million UEC. You could buy any ship he wants to in the game, but there's no need to, and there's no desire to. But the reason he was messaging me is because, hey, I've got 500 million to put in the org bank. That's great. We would buy armor sets with that. We would buy weapons with that. We would buy railguns off the market, stuff like that, except for there is no need for any of that anymore. And ultimately, there's no need for AUEC. Claims on ships are 3k, 4k, 5k a pop, and they're a 2-minute inconvenience. So now when you die, it's a 2-3k bill with a 2-3-minute wait, and then you're back in the ship, quantuming exactly to the loop that you wanted to go back to, that you made the mistake of dying in. But let's go through the list I put together, just of the immediate consequences of this absolutely terribly thought out change. So number one, say you take a Polaris to the exec hangar. You can now infinitely respawn from the beds with your gear and weapons and just zerg rush back into the station. So if you catch an organization inside there, or at any location at all in the verse, you can infinitely respawn from your larger ship using the med beds, and you'll be constantly coming in waves with heavy armor and likely the most meta weapons, grenade launchers, railguns, FS9s, you name it. So the economy of FPS gear and how that impacts in PvP is going to be really damaging, especially for players that are victims of PvP. If you get PvP'd upon, now you have to deal with that PvPer coming back to you quickly, even if you were to succeed. With this same outfit that he is failed to kill you or did successfully kill your teammates, whatever, within the first place. So infinite respawning from med beds in large ships, massive issue. Exec hangars, PvP locations, whatever. Number two, say you get pirated in your ship. You can say you're pirating a ship or someone's pirating your ship. Now, if you're being pirated, you can spam respawn from your med bed, rushing them with your infinite lives and kit until you finally kill off the pirates. So, you know, imagine you're with your friends and you four of you manage to pirate a large ship. It's got cargo in it. That pilot can Zerg rush you from the med bed with whatever gun he has and keep sieging the cockpit over and over again until eventually he's killed off your team and you're no longer able to respawn on the ship, or you're no longer able to maintain control of the ship. So that happens. Happens both ways too. You know, you could simply park a med bed outside and use it offensively just as well. Number three, dying in a contested zone. When you die in a contested zone, you respawn. You have to either go to the inventory or start buying gear again and putting together another kit. This slows down the respawn process. That respawn process no longer exists now. It's off the med bed, straight into the elevator, up to the main floor, straight to the contested zone, you're back in action, guns on. Worst case scenario, you pull 10 magazines and 4 med pens out of your inventory terminal, which slows you down another 10 seconds, but you're back there instantly. You can keep up this momentum. You can keep up this respawning indefinitely. You can keep doing this as long as you want. You could do this for 5 hours and have barely gone through 100k UEC spent. This is so bad for contested zone PvP. It's crazy. And is going to be a nightmare without consequence of death in these contested zones. Another example is like you wipe a team of 4 players. Congratulations, you've looted 30 med pens, 50 magazines of some random weapons, and a burrito, for example. There's nothing of value outside of the equipment that players are wearing. This includes yourself and players you loot. When you go to a contested zone, you're not going in there or you're going to jump town keep within mind, oh man, like I can't wait to loot the magazines off this player. I can't wait to get these med pens. You know, maybe they have a hacking chip or a burrito inside of their inventory. This kills the looting of player gameplay loop entirely. That goes for the lawful side and the unlawful, by the way. That is not just a piracy thing. That is not just a killing players that are not interested in PvP. That is both sides. Progression. This is just completely ruined. You complete your progression in a day. Once you've got the components you need inside of the ships that you likely bought or earned, one of the two, because the database doesn't wipe ships all the time, only very rarely, like the 4.0 patch. But if you've bought a ship with USD, you now own that. You put the ship components, you put that inside. That's it. You're done the grind, because the armor set and the weapons were the only thing that you needed to upkeep and keep purchasing versions of. That no longer exists, meaning you've completed your progression in an even shorter amount of time. Good example is when the 4.0 patch dropped, I immediately went to build up my stash, which is a Tarkov term for gear inside your account, right? I built up a stash of 40 to 50 armor sets so that they'd be ready to go. And I built up a stash of the same amount of weapons that had upgraded components or attachments from contested zones. Now I only need one. So in the 4.1 patch, I'll log on. I will equip a Kana with the weapon attachments. I'll buy 1,000 Kana rounds or magazines. Sorry. I will buy 1,000 med pens. I will put my slipstream into my ship, my other coolers into my ship, my shields into my ship, my quantum drive, and then I'm done. That's it. Progression is knocked out in one day. This is a consequence not only to the PvP community, but the PvE community too. You don't have anything to work towards now outside of 2 days of progression for the sake of defending players that have purchased their gear online or players that are risk adverse and want to play the game more casually. You're catering to casual players at the cost of depth and longevity, and I think it's a real massive issue here. Number 6, you only need to purchase the magazine med pens for the rest of your time in the patch. That's it. AUEC has only one purpose to you now. Either you're getting creative and want to fly other ships for the sake of it. Again, a lot of players, anyone that's played the game past 6 months, stops acquiring other ships, I like to think. I definitely have. Because they all do the same thing, they just look a little different. You get the best ships you can for the gameplay you want to do, and then you're done with the ship grind. But now you're done with the FPS grind as well, and there is no grind. So the rest of the patch, you're purchasing like magazines and med pens to be able to keep playing. But any equipment you have can either be bought off the store or bought in game. And if you've done either, you're looking at a couple days grind, and then you're finished. So you've reached end game. There's no more content for you to digest outside of just the exercise or the activity, but you're not working towards anything. This kills any progression. 7, the contested zones just ultimately go quiet. Again, building your stashes, like number 8, building your stashes is just pointless. There is no stash anymore. There's the armor suit that you have, and the ship that you have with the components you put in it, and that's it. You're done. Med pens and ammunition, that's it. The armor and weapon market that was player run is now officially dead, or at least will only survive for the first 2 weeks of the patch until everybody has their one railgun, their one grenade launcher, their one FS9, and they have their one armor suit that they were looking for, and then it's done. This is a real shame for me personally, because that's something I really loved about 4.0 and the direction the game was heading in, was you would purchase... I actually had, for people who don't know, Salty Mike has an organization that run logistics. We've actually got deals with our organization, their organization, that we purchase Xenothreat armor in bulk off them. And we do a big meetup. They transfer the stuff through the hangar elevators to us, and we buy it in bulk. There's no need for armor at all, because we no longer lose it. So we don't have to buy any of it in bulk. Everybody will equip one armor set, and that's it. They're done for the rest of the 4.1 patch until the tier 1 and tier 2 implementations. So, sorry, Mike, I guess our business deals are dead there. The weapon market's the same thing. You now run into a railgun. You know, it's not, you need to buy 50 railguns for you guys to use, and maybe that'll last you a month. Now you buy 5 railguns, and that's it. You're completely done with the railgun grind. So rare items are no longer rare or even sought out. And the first steps of the player market and player trading is now just dead in the water. The channels like in the Reddit Discord or other organization Discords where they're running buy and sell, and players are actually starting to engage in trade in an MMO is effing dead, boys. And it was only held up by FPS equipment, and no longer the case. So sad, because we were starting to get towards those first steps of what can be an MMO and bring players together. And instead, we've catered to the solo or the casual player experience at the cost of the player market, the first steps of it. So dead in the water. Number 10, every encounter will be just meta weapons, right? Railguns, grenade launchers, and stuff like that, FS9s. All the other weapons that are maybe like stepping stone weapons are no longer a thing. Yeah, no one's going to be running pistols. There'll be no use of it. The lesser balanced weapons, there will be no one running with them. Everyone's going to have the best gear at all times. Imagine PvP FPS that doesn't even include ballistics, but instead just grenade launchers and the constant force reactions getting bounced around terribly. PvP encounters for FPS is going to be unbearable now that rarity in weapons and bringing significantly powerful weapons no longer has any risk. Yeah, not looking forward to running into grenade launchers at every interaction. Or every outpost having railguns, every jump town having players hiding behind rocks with railguns, because they've had the same railgun for the last 9 months. God, guys, this is bad. It's so bad. 11, there's just nothing to spend UEC on. Yeah, like the claims on your ships, again, 2k, 5k a pop. Refueling, maybe 5k. Repairing, maybe 5k. Stuff like this. There's just no money sink. Re-kitting is about 150k is the last I counted when I was doing contested zones on stream all the time. Now it's what, 5k in ammunition and med pens. So there's just nothing to spend UEC on that you can't buy off the store anyways. All this can be bought off the store. You own it infinitely, and maybe they'll make $20,000 off this sales because they've encouraged people to buy more gear. Now that this is the case, but at the cost of the game, in my opinion. Just like, what is there to buy? Like, tell me, guys, outside of repair, refuel costs and claims, after you've got your armor, you've got your weapons, and you've got your ship components, and you own the ship you wanted to fly, what is there to buy? Let me know in the chat. Also, I want to know this too. Name me a money sink that exists now. Just give me one money sink. An actual money sink too. A 2k claim on a ship because it died ain't gonna cut it. Yeah. 11. Sorry, no, 12. And this is like a real important one too that I don't think people are even considering. But this removes a compelling reason to even do PvE content. What's the point in going to bunkers if the rare Hurston security armor you already own? What's the point in going to distribution centers and trying to loot rare loot if the loot isn't rare because you own it all the time anyways now? What's the point in going to a contested zone past the first time because you've looted the weapon you want to with the attachments it has? What's the point to even PvE now? You know, like, why PvE if now we're only dependent on how fun the activity is itself? And how repeatable is this content now that there's no benefit to it? You're not going out and earning upgrades if you've already got all the upgrades, and the upgrades were very easy to get. So I just don't think this fits into the big picture because it's not supposed to. This isn't the direction of the game, right? Like, T0 is not the final destination. We understand that. T1 and T2 is some safe compromise between we don't want our game to be brutal to turn players away, but we do want our game to have risk and reward so that we do get dopamine and players are having fun and win and lose. They've taken away losing and inadvertently taken away winning. And it's... the T0 makes zero sense. This is a giant step backwards. Now we can't loot anything. Now there is no risk and there is no reward. This wasn't just a problem of we've now fixed the issue of people losing their stuff. We've now killed the enjoyment and the fun and the chase of getting that stuff as well. And I don't think that this was thought out. And that's the video. Yeah, I'm just extremely disappointed. Massively disappointed. I made a thread on Spectrum. You guys can check it out if you want. Where I just say I'm sad. This is just sad. It's what this is. there's a way that you can there's a way I can explain it. If you're a Star Citizen backer, meaning you are one of the players that purchased everything on your account to play and take into the verse, this is a good day for you because your money is now well spent and you can't lose anything that you purchased. So it's great if you're a backer or a spender, but I think today was a terrible day if you're a Star Citizen player. So it's a good day if you're a backer, a terrible day if you're a player. And if you've been struggling with bunkers, it's a good day for you too. Yeah. But if you've been waiting for the economy, wanting money sinks, real risk and reward, you'll just have to wait until T1, T2. And if this is anything like ship armor, we could be here for another 7 years. Because how many videos have I made where people mention ship armor and it's just never come, but it's always been on the way? Praying that's not the scenario here, but just such a mistake. Yeah. I try to put myself in other people's shoes and understand the other side of the coin, but I just do not see any upside here for anybody. I see only massive downside. Doesn't feel like this was well thought out and concerning. I know some people will be happy about this, but kills it for me in the meantime. Kills it for me in the meantime, boys. Disappointing. Hopefully we get to T1 as soon as possible, or some better solution comes in place. I'm just going to go through the comments. So the full loot aspects of the game are gone. Yes, they are for now. What are we supposed to do with the crafted item economy? Not wrong. WTF is this? Yup. It's weird to even name this item recovery tier 0 or not. This is just you don't lose your stuff. We agree with that. It's just crafting's a huge concern here. Yep. This is the complete opposite of what we actually wanted. Yep. Yeah, how I feel exactly. Just such a step backwards. Oh boy, oh boy. Anyways, guys, I understand people won't all agree with me, and I know that some people are happy about this. I'm just not one of those people, and that's that. Just bad game design, man. Just really bad game design.